August 12th, 30 BC. You're a Roman guard standing outside a sealed stone chamber in Alexandria. Inside that room is Cleopatra VII, Queen of Egypt, pharaoh, descendant of the Ptolemies, the most powerful woman in the ancient world. She has been locked inside for 7 days. Sometimes you hear her, not crying, not screaming, just moving. Soft footsteps on stone, the faint rustle of fabric. Occasionally, she speaks, as if someone is there with her, even though you know she's completely alone. Before we go any further, there's something you need to understand about Cleopatra's death. Almost everything you think you know is wrong. The romantic story of an asp hidden in a basket of figs is probably fiction. The image of Cleopatra drifting peacefully to sleep in her royal bed, surrounded by loyal handmaidens, is definitely fiction. What actually happened in those sealed chambers between August 1st and August 12th, 30 BC was far more calculated, far more cruel, and far more revealing about how Rome destroyed its enemies. This isn't a story about suicide. It's a story about a systematic psychological operation designed to break the last pharaoh of Egypt before killing her. The real question isn't how Cleopatra died. The question is why Octavian needed her to die the specific way she did, and why he needed 10 days to make it happen. If you believe that understanding how power operates at its most calculated deserves to be remembered, consider subscribing. This channel exists to expose the mechanisms of control that shaped ancient civilizations, the parts romantic history prefers to ignore. Let me show you what really happened during Cleopatra's last 10 days alive. Act 1. The capture. The destruction began on August 1st, 30 BC, inside the tomb Cleopatra had built for herself. Picture the scene. Mark Antony is dying. He has fallen on his own sword after receiving false reports that Cleopatra is already dead. But she isn't dead. She's barricaded herself inside her tomb with her 2 most loyal handmaidens and as much treasure as she could carry. The tomb stands near the Temple of Isis, a stone structure, 2 stories tall, massive wooden doors, no windows at ground level, built like a fortress. Cleopatra understood that in death, she needed the same protection she demanded in life. Antony lies bleeding at the base of the tomb. His men beg Cleopatra to open the doors. She refuses. She can't risk it. Octavian's soldiers are minutes away. According to Plutarch, who later interviewed people who were there, Cleopatra and her 2 handmaidens lower ropes from a second-floor window. They haul Antony upward while he's dying, his blood streaking down the stone walls as they pull. Think about that image. The Queen of Egypt dragging her dying lover through a window because she's too terrified to open her own door. Antony dies in her arms on the second floor of that tomb. His final words, recorded by Plutarch: "Do not pity me for this last turn of fate. I was the greatest Roman of them all. I am only defeated by another Roman." He dies believing his life still had meaning. That matters. Cleopatra has maybe 10 minutes to grieve before Octavian's soldiers arrive. And here's where the story changes. Octavian doesn't storm the tomb. He doesn't break down the doors. He doesn't force his way in. Instead, he sends a messenger, a man named Gaius Proculaeus. The message is simple. Caesar wishes to discuss terms for your surrender and the future of your children. Cleopatra refuses to open the door. She speaks to Proculaeus through a narrow gap in the stone. She says she'll only negotiate if Octavian guarantees her children's safety. While she's talking, Proculaeus's men begin climbing the walls. They reach the same window Cleopatra used to pull Antony inside hours earlier. And suddenly, they're in the room. They grab her before she can react. Cleopatra reaches into her clothing, pulls out a hidden dagger, and tries to stab herself. But the soldiers are ready. They tackle her, disarm her. According to Cassius Dio, Cleopatra screams at them, "You will not take me alive to Rome. You will not parade me. Kill me now." But the soldiers have clear orders. Keep her alive. Use whatever force is necessary, but do not let her die. They carry her out of the tomb, take her to the palace, lock her inside a sealed chamber on the second floor. That is August 1st, the day the real destruction begins. Act 2. The plan. Here's what you need to understand about Octavian's strategy. He didn't just want Cleopatra dead. He needed something very specific from her death, and that required time. Octavian had just conquered Egypt, the wealthiest kingdom in the ancient world. Its grain, gold, and treasury now belonged to him. But back in Rome, he had a problem. He'd just finished a civil war, Romans killing Romans. That kind of bloodshed needed justification, so Octavian had to reframe it, transform a civil war into something more acceptable, something cleaner. A war against a foreign enemy, a war against a dangerous Eastern queen who had seduced Mark Antony and nearly destroyed Rome. There was just one problem. Cleopatra wasn't a barbarian. She was educated, sophisticated, politically brilliant. She spoke Greek, Egyptian, and Latin. She had lived in Rome. She had negotiated with senators. She had debated Cicero. Romans knew she wasn't a cartoon villain, and complicated enemies don't make good propaganda. Octavian needed to simplify her. He needed to turn her into a symbol, the Eastern temptress, the Egyptian witch, the foreign corruption that had to be destroyed to save Rome. Most importantly, he needed to parade her through Rome in his triumph. Roman triumphs followed a ritual formula. The defeated enemy king or queen was led through the streets in chains, displayed to the crowd, humiliated publicly, and at the end of the parade, traditionally executed in the Tullianum prison. This ritualized degradation was how Rome celebrated victory. Octavian's entire political future depended on that moment, on showing Rome the defeated queen of Egypt. But Cleopatra knew that formula. She had seen triumphs before. She had been in Rome in 46 BC during Julius Caesar's Gallic triumph. She had watched as Vercingetorix, king of the Gauls, was paraded through the streets and then strangled in prison. She knew exactly what Octavian planned to do to her, and she would rather die than let it happen. That's why the 10 days mattered. Octavian needed Cleopatra alive to take her to Rome. Cleopatra was determined to die before he could parade her. Two wills in absolute opposition. 10 days to resolve it. Act 3. The cage, the chamber holding Cleopatra, was carefully chosen. Second floor of the palace. One door, one narrow window, too small for a person to escape through. Guards posted outside around the clock. Everything remotely dangerous was removed. No knives, no cords, no sharp objects of any kind. According to Plutarch, her clothing and hair were searched daily, every fold, every braid, for hidden weapons or poison. She was stripped of everything except basic garments and left alone in an empty stone room. But Octavian wasn't relying on imprisonment alone. He needed to do something more precise. Cleopatra wanted death because death meant dignity. Death meant control. Death meant Octavian couldn't use her as a trophy. So Octavian had to reverse that logic. He had to give her a reason to live. He used her children. Cleopatra had 4. Caesarion, her son with Julius Caesar, was 17. The twins, Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene, were 10. The youngest, Ptolemy Philadelphus, was 6. Octavian separated them from their mother immediately, took them to different parts of the palace, kept them under guard. On August 2nd, Octavian sent another messenger, Gaius Cornelius Gallus, poet, soldier, diplomat. The message was polite, controlled, devastating. Caesar wishes you to know that your children are being well cared for. Their future depends entirely on your cooperation. Should anything happen to you, Caesar cannot guarantee their safety. Caesarion in particular is in a very precarious position. Cleopatra understood instantly. Caesarion was Julius Caesar's biological son. That made him a threat. Octavian's entire claim to power rested on being Caesar's adopted heir. If Cleopatra died, Caesarion would have no protection. Octavian would kill him. But if Cleopatra lived,